this time of year is my hardest time of year. Like I used to love fall. Halloween was my favorite holiday, but now it just signals the start of the larger holiday season that brings just so much heartache for me and for my kids, and I'm sure for my ex. So I think it's double pressure because like I literally, especially those first years after I was divorced, I just wanted to stay in my bed like from October to January. It's like, no, thank you. There were so many holidays. I swear every Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'd all be crying at some point. Somebody would be pissed at somebody would be not doing something right. I mean, it was just so many emotions. And I mean, I'm just sending so much love and support to anybody, man or woman, going through a divorce, especially at this time of the year. It really freaking sucks. Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome to Drinks with the Girls, a podcast for women where we have real conversations about all things life after 40. I'm Karen, and today we'll be talking about divorce, along with ways to keep the spark alive in your marriage and nurture romantic relationships later in life. Whether you and your partner are talking about separation, you're healing from a divorce, or you're looking to recharge your marriage or current relationship, we're hoping to offer insight and support, and maybe even a little hope around the complexities of romantic relationships in midlife.
Oh, it's going to be a doozy, peeps. Buckle up. So I'm Lisa. Today, I am sipping on a new little tipple. It's called Q Mixers, right? And I know they have one for margaritas and things like this. This one is a premium ginger beer, spicy and robust. So I actually haven't tried it yet, so I probably should try it and see if I'm okay with it. That's pretty good. Oh, my lips are tingling. Woo!
Ginger beer. Okay. Is that what goes in a Moscow Mule?
Oh, I don't know, girl. I don't speak Moscow Mule. I think so. I like ginger beer. I like homemade ginger beers. This one isn't homemade, but like root beers and ginger beers and all that. There's definitely ginger in it, though. My lips are tingling. So if they swell up and I look like I just got like lip fillers by the end of this, tell me.
Oh, nice. Natural lip fillers.
And what are you drinking?
I am enjoying a nice, hearty glass of red wine. Just seems fitting for the topic for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was having a little like acid reflux today, full disclosure. So I was like, I better not do the red wine. I love my red wine. So let's get right into it. Did you know that divorce rates have increased significantly for people over 40? I'm going to bet that the pandemic has had a lot to do with that as well. I mean, I heard so many stories of people that, it's like, oh, I love my partner, but spending 24/7 with someone in like a tiny apartment or something, like I'm not surprised that would burst a lot of marriages at the seams.
That would do it. Yeah, I did not know that they've increased for people over 40, but having been there myself and after working with women in midlife, it's really not a surprise to me. I feel like women in this demographic, as we've talked about before, are just experiencing a lot, like the midlife fuckery that we talk about. They're going through changes, like they're shifting roles, shifting priorities, changing careers sometimes. Some of them are going through empty nesting. And then, there's just the natural quest for increased personal fulfillment. And then, toss in a good helping of menopause, and you have a recipe for some turbulent times. But I think a lot of times the romantic relationship takes a hit with all of this going on, especially if the marital connection is strained, non-existent, or just, there's not that mutual support. And also, I think women at this stage find themselves with more time to recognize any holes in their relationship and they start thinking about, ways to fill them. Sometimes women get to the point where they feel like they're the only one trying to fix the marriage. And this can just be emotionally exhausting.
Yeah, exactly. The changes women go through at this stage in life present a huge emotional impact, then toss in a divorce. And I'm sure that the psychological effects can be devastating. Feelings of loss, anger, guilt, and depression. But believe it or not, I've actually heard some women even feel relief.
Oh, yeah, it can be an emotional roller coaster. But let me tell you, our beautiful listeners, if you're going through a divorce right now or feel one maybe in your future, there is hope because many women find once the healing begins after divorce that there is a sense of like liberation.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But while you're going through a divorce, I'm imagining it can be really hard to find strength in this idea of a brand new beginning.
100%. There are so many emotions to wade through, like emotions you didn't even know were possible. I got divorced 7 years ago after a 23-year marriage. And I don't think I could fully find my strength until I started working through my grief and my sadness. And it's important to note, obviously, every divorce is different, and there are just so many factors at play. Some women may feel sadness and anger, while others may feel relief and anticipation. I have to believe, though, every woman goes through some sort of grieving process, even if they were the one that initiated it or, they feel a little excited about this new chapter. There's still this, grief around your life just not turning out like you thought it would. And especially if you have children, this is a frickin' doozy.
I know for me, when I've gone through rocky parts of my marriage, as everyone does, the question has always been, when is enough enough? Like, what is that straw that breaks the camel's back? I mean, in my case, my husband and I did separate for a while, but we did some hard freaking work and frankly continue to do work. I mean, I had and have my own reasons for staying. I think for me personally, the critical factor in my marriage is that when push comes to shove, my husband is willing to work on himself. So, in your mind, Karen, what is that last straw typically for the women that you talk to when they decide to move forward with the divorce?
I mean, I think in my case and all the clients that I've worked with are going through a divorce or were trying to decide if they were going to go through a divorce. I have had clients that after working together, they decided to stay married. But I think that final straw, I mean, there really isn't a final straw. I think when we get to our age, it's like, it's just been like this slow burn and it's just years and sometimes decades of unhappiness and resentments and lack of communication and lack of support and lack of feeling validated. And, you just get to a point where you're just like, that's it. I'm done. So I don't think there's necessarily like this thing.
Yeah.
It's just you get to the point. And I think it's the beauty of getting older for women is you decide, I'm worthy of something better.
Yeah. So it's not, oh gosh, she didn't put the dishes away thing, but that might be just like, all right, that's it. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So how can women start to put the pieces back together after a divorce?
Well, that's a very detailed process, but I'd say the number, how long do we have here?
Yeah.
I'd say the number one most important tip is to seek professional help. Going through a divorce alone is tough. I never would have managed without my therapist and my best girlfriends, I have to say. But I had started therapy a couple years before my divorce. I knew I was feeling this emptiness inside and I wasn't really sure what it was about. I tried to work on myself thinking I could fill it. And after some time, it became clear my marriage was causing a majority of this emptiness. I tried different things, but when you're the only one working to make things better or even realizing there's a problem, it's, like pushing a boulder up a hill. But my therapist helped me really gain the clarity I needed to see what I really wanted and needed in my life and in my marriage. She helped me build the strength, because it takes so much strength. And she kept me grounded when I was off base. Like if I tried to, talk trash or whatever about my ex, she would, keep me focused. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy at all, but Even after my divorce, I continued working on my emotional healing with life coaches because just like with any major challenging event in life, it can take years and decades even to process all of the emotions that continue to pop up. I mean, I think I'll be dealing honestly with all of the things around my divorce for the rest of my life, and not to the extent that I was 7 years ago, but there's still scabs and scars there.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I feel like up to this point, we've been talking a lot about women initiating a divorce. And so my question is, do you find that when it's the other way around, when it's the spouse that initiates the divorce, that you deal with different themes with women? Are they the same? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, I've never had a client that has come to me and her husband was initiating the divorce.
Interesting.
But I would imagine, yes, I would imagine it's very different because you'd be feeling, and especially at our age, like
Yeah.
you're feeling like you're getting traded in with for a younger model maybe. So yeah, I think those would be pretty different. But yeah, isn't that interesting? I never thought about that before, but no, all my clients are the ones that are either contemplating the divorce, have been divorced, or are in the middle of it.
Okay. Interesting.
I do want to normalize here that if anyone out there has been through a divorce and they feel like they should be over it, air quotes, or have moved on, air quotes, I'm here to say it takes work and time, especially if you've been married for decades. Like I still have triggers. My big ones are the holidays. And also, this sounds kind of weird, but when my friends or people celebrate big anniversaries, not that I want to still be married to my ex because I don't, but it's just a reminder of what was. And I would have been married 30 years this year. So, like, people are having big, this would have been like a big anniversary. And so, anyway, those are just some of my triggers. And I'll deal with that forever, probably.
That's super valuable advice. Processing any kind of big feelings takes time for sure.
It does. And, I've learned to really just give myself grace when I do get triggered. And it's taken me time to like notice it and not beat myself up about it. This time of year is my hardest time of year. Like I used to love fall. Halloween was my favorite holiday, but now it just signals the start of the larger holiday season that brings just so much heartache for me and for my kids. And I'm sure for my ex.
Yeah. I just got a flash when you said that because my mom passed away in October. Actually, wow, in like 9 days, it will have been, God, 7 years, which is crazy. So I also have weird feelings around this time. And I hadn't even put that together till you said that.
So I think it's double pressure because like I literally, especially those first years after I was divorced, I just wanted to stay in my bed, like from October to January. It's like, no, thank you. There were so many holidays and my kids are just, God, it just, oh, it's hard for me to think about. But the first years, man, I swear every Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'd all be crying at some point. Somebody would be pissed at somebody would be not doing something right. I mean, it was just so many emotions. And I mean, I'm just sending so much love and support to anybody, man or woman, going through a divorce, especially at this time of the year. It really freaking sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been through it, but I've been through other traumas around the holidays. So
it just makes it hard. It just magnifies everything, all the pain.
For sure.
But I have to say, I allow myself to feel sad for a minute. I don't let myself stay there. And then I pick myself up. I look at the blessings in my life and I refuse to beat myself up for being divorced. I mean, I did that for the first few years. Like I would just beat myself up for being divorced, but I don't do that anymore. I think it helped that I haven't ever really pushed down my feelings around it. Like I acknowledged myself for how painful it was. I gave myself permission to process all the feelings. I wasn't really able to dive into like that reinvention phase after my divorce right away. It took me a while to work through all the emotions and just feel like myself again. But I have to say, once my healing had begun, it became kind of exciting to decide who I wanted to be in this new chapter. I focused on hobbies and setting new goals, and I leaned on my friendships And I practiced radical fucking self-care. They were all important parts of that journey. And I want to tell anyone going through a divorce right now, give yourself a hell of a lot of grace.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm guessing it's also pretty crucial to actively make steps to move forward. So setting new goals, embracing change. I can imagine that that's liberating.
For sure. Yeah, staying stuck in regret or what ifs, that won't serve you.
In anything
I was
in life.
no,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. I was stuck there for a while and it's not a fun place to be. It was almost like part of me felt like I deserved to suffer because I was the one that initiated the divorce. I mean, our brain can do some fucked up shit sometimes, right? That's why I'm always talking about mindset. But everyone has their own healing timeline, and what might help one person might not land for another. And there's just not one right answer. Actually, it's so funny, ironic. My brother, who's never been married, but he gave me some amazing advice when I told him I was getting a divorce, just around my guilt and the guilt I had. And he said, guilt serves no purpose. You deserve to be happy.
Hell yeah.
And that, what a good little brother. And that really helped me start to heal. It literally became my mantra because your mind really fucks with you when you're going through a divorce. And I had to really rely on those two sentences for the first couple of years.
I just love that idea for sure. So, besides the practical considerations, such as the financial and legal circumstances, and full transparency, I remember when I was separated, like that shit's real, right? Like the financial piece. Whew. Yeah. But what are some of the things that took you by surprise?
As much as I knew things would change, I just wasn't fully prepared for all the ways, like losing friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I didn't realize that because, that's kind of part of it. Like some people choose him, some people choose her or, whatever. And then dealing with the anger of my kids because they were adults at the time and they felt like they had a say, which was really hard. My own depression, how the holidays really suck. Like 7 years later, they still suck, kind of like I talked about earlier. But the other thing is the stigma around divorce. It's like there's just this stigma and it sucks, makes it harder, I think, for people to make the decision. And then feeling like I failed, like that's a big thing. Like I don't regret anything. Like I don't regret being married. I don't regret staying married. I have amazing memories, but there is this sense like, oh, I couldn't really do it. I couldn't get to the finish line, and especially when people around you are staying married for 30, 40, whatever years. And I mean, my hats are off to people that stay married for decades and decades and decades. And I also recognize that a lot of women are suffering in silence.
Yeah, it's interesting because my husband, I'm wife number 2. And so, yeah, I always joke with him, like, you'll be very happy with wife number 3, I'm sure. When he really pisses me off. But, and we've talked about that whole piece too. And like, because he's from England. So I think about this a lot, right? If he and his ex had kids, we probably never would have made it because like, hello, that's a continent, right? But it's been interesting for him to kind of get his take on a second marriage and I don't want to like hijack this, but
hijack, baby, hijack.
That's all we do here. My name is Lisa Corachella McDowell, and I'm not just a healthy smoothie girl. Check out nextlevellifewithlisa.com, my website and centerpiece for all that I do. Connect with me about my free classes, the fabulous health and wellness products I have, literacy work, special education advocacy, and social media. I try to live my truth and put it all out there authentically. And for a special offer, go to nextlevellifewithlisa.com/podcast for some exclusive goodies for my Drinks with the Girls listeners. See you there.
The other thing that really surprised me was just having to let go of how I thought my life would be. Like not being a part of a traditional family. Nobody gets married thinking that they're going to get divorced. Nobody wants to fucking get divorced.
Sure.
Even if you want a divorce, you don't want a divorce, right? And as much as I don't want to be married to my ex, when I think about the family aspect, the vacations, the holidays, time spent with our kids, it's just like such a gut punch. And I never really thought of this before, but it's as if somehow I'm less of a woman because I didn't keep my family together at all costs. I think there is this kind of pressure for women to have a family and then keep the family afloat, even when the woman is drowning in unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think society puts this emotional pressure on men. I mean, the
Yeah.
financial pressure for sure, but I don't think men feel they are less of a man if they're divorced.
Yeah,
I
that
don't know
makes
if that
sense.
makes sense.
It
Yeah,
makes
does
sense
it?
to me. Yeah.
And I know things are changing for the generations behind us. Younger women don't feel like they have to have a family or have to be married, right? And that's a good thing. I wouldn't have changed anything. I love being a mom, but it's about having a choice whether or not to have kids, a choice whether or not to get or stay married. And I think the ingrained societal constructs make these choices not really feel like choices for women sometimes. And I'm just glad this is changing.
So let's switch gears and talk about the modern dating scene. It is wild how technology has changed everything.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a hard time dating when I was younger. I can't imagine I'd be really good at it now. But
You got to cheat the system though.
I did get to cheat the system, and it was in a weird way. But I sidestepped the whole dating after divorce thing. Fiance Tony and I reconnected. We had dated briefly in high school, but we reconnected before my divorce was, and I was extremely conflicted about this whole thing. Backstory a little bit. I'm a Virgo. So I had in my mind the way that I thought things, quote unquote, should go. I thought I should be divorced for a year or two, then start dating if I wanted to. But, unfortunately, life doesn't always line up the way that we think it should, especially if Virgos are trying to over control everything. So Tony had reached out to me through good old Facebook. He had been divorced for about 10 years or so. And he reached out to me right as I was moving through the early stages of my divorce process. And I was just so fucking overwhelmed. I was like, basically, I don't have time for you, dude. So I just put him in a holding pattern.
That worked out. Not.
But I mean, it was important for me to end my marriage with as much care as possible. And I didn't want to be married to my ex anymore, but I didn't wish him any harm. But being a Virgo, I thought I could control, literally, I look back and I'm just like, oh my God, Karen. I just thought I could control all these moving parts, and how the whole thing went. And so once I could come up for air a little bit after the divorce, the wheels were kind of rolling. I talked to my therapist about Tony, and she basically said, you're going to risk losing a good man because it doesn't fit into your timeline. And I mean, I did a lot of work with my therapist around my divorce, and I did a lot of introspection to just get super clear because it was not a decision that was made lightly or overnight. It was actually made over years. And it was only when I had the confidence in the decision and the wheels were rolling on the initial stages of the divorce that I started moving through my grief and my depression. And, then I started feeling lighter, and I had the emotional space then to chat with Tony. And he turned out to be a pretty giving and funny guy, which was appealing. But I just cannot stress this enough that working with my therapist was paramount in my healing, during and after the divorce. So if anyone is in any stages of a divorce, I highly recommend you work with a coach or a therapist because going through it alone is fucking excruciating. And also, I have to say too, this is a hot tip. I know I've been talking a lot, but here we go. At the same time, I was seeing my therapist, whatever. I had a good group of girlfriends, but I sought out women who I knew had been divorced. Some of them I didn't even really know well. We were just acquaintances. But it's a lonely road, and your self-worth really takes a hit. And as much as my besties let me snot cry and be kind of a wet rag most of the time, they really just couldn't give me the validation I needed because most of my friends are married. So I recommend this to anyone too, going through a divorce or even contemplating it. Find women who've been there, because let me just tell you, none of the women I talked to regretted it. So there's that. But to my therapist's point, these divorced friends that I had, they really validated how hard it is to find a good man out there. I mean, I know that sounds so cliche, not that it can't be done, because I know women who have found amazing men the second time around. But, at the time, my friends were just painting a pretty dismal picture. They showed me their dating apps, and they just scroll and scroll and scroll. And So, I mean, I don't know. As much as it wasn't part of my plan to start talking to someone before I was officially divorced, as they say, shit happens.
Okay,
And
I have to call bullshit on this. And the reason
yes,
I'm calling bullshit is that this is part of the whole like I don't deserve it thing, right? Like you have guilt over the fact that quote unquote it was easier, right? Like it wasn't easier. You went through years of shit to meet this man, and just because it was in a different form doesn't make it any less valid or real, right? Like this idea that like you cheated it and you had to be like miserable for a few years before you found the right person. Like bullshit to that, bollocks to that, as my husband would say.
bollocks. I love it. Yeah, no, guilt is my forever partner in life with this. And
Bye.
it's the thing I forever deal with because I initiated this, and from the outside looking in, it was perfect, and from the inside looking out, it was not. The guilt and the deservingness. I mean, sometimes when I'm really kind of back in that place, I don't. It's like I don't deserve this happiness. But guess what? I fucking do. But yeah, I mean, God, it's just, it's just there's just so much. At the end of the day, I ended up making the decisions that were right for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I had a lot of confliction around the fact that Tony and I started dating before I was officially divorced. I was already confident in my decision. The wheels were already rolling on the divorce. We were in the middle of, the process. And so like, again, my Virgo brain was like, okay, you got to end your divorce and then start dating. And it's just, life just doesn't happen that way. So I know some of my religious girlies out there might have some feelings about this, and I see you. And also I made decisions that were right for me.
Yeah, for sure. So I thank God every day that I don't have to use dating apps, God willing, anymore, because holy crap. But my story is a little different. So yes, I am married. However, I got married super late. I was owed. I was like 36, 37. And we've talked about this. My second child was born when I was 42. So I actually remember seeing Karen's wedding pictures and the announcement. And I remember feeling jealous as hell, to be completely honest, and thinking, I suck. Like, look at this. She's got this perfect thing happening, right? So I'm now seeing, obviously, like what really happened. And the other thing about my situation that's different is I'm wife number 2. My husband was divorced before me. And so, of course, I always torture him when I'm feeling particularly evil and say, you'll be very happy with wife number 3, I'm sure.
He's smart ass.
He will be. He will be. I support that. At any rate, so we literally met the day his divorce was final.
Oh boy.
It's different for me, and it's been an interesting process. Like, when we first got together, and he really had some ideas about wanting to do things very differently than the first time, and not just the typical things you would think of. But so, for example, he had a plain gold band with his first marriage, and he's like, I don't know what I should get. And I said, look, I don't care what you get. I just want it to be different. I just want it to be different. That's the only thing I ask. And I love his wedding ring. It's so gorgeous. So I don't know if y'all have seen the picture of, it's a Japanese like woodcut print of that wave, that big old wave. Yeah. So it's that, but repeated in gold in this flat band around his finger. And when he saw it, he fell in love with it. And he's like, this symbolizes how we found each other because it's over the waves. It was one of those, again, like the universe knows what it's doing, even if you're trying to shove it in little boxes. So I was over in England visiting a girlfriend who I knew really well. And she's like, let's go to the pub. And she's like, I never had gone to this pub before. It was called the Happy Medium, which is hysterical. I actually have a picture of us in front of it with my son. We went back later. But at any rate, so we go in this pub, and you have to understand, I am over there and thinking about moving to Europe and like teaching over there. Like I was not in that space at all. I was there to like see my friend and enjoy my vacation, this and that, and the other. And so she's like trying to set me up with this guy, this friend of hers. And I'm like, this is so not what I want. Like, I'm just not in that space. And so I saw my husband across the room, and literally to throw her off so I wouldn't have to deal with this ridiculous setup, I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. And it worked like a charm. She got up, she's like, oh, I'm going to find out who he is. I'm like, yes, this is a total wild goose chase. Like, I can drink my beer, move on, right? But no. So we get ready to leave, and I'm like, okay, dodge that one. And so the visual's kind of hard to explain, but it's important. So she lived across the street from this pub, like down the block, but there was this really busy highway there. There was like these two streets that came to a V, and then the really busy street went in like at the point of the V, and then the pub was in that kind of crook there. And so we're getting ready to cross the street, and I hear this, excuse me, and I do a shitty British accent. You would think after all this time I could do better. Pardon me, are you American? Or no, he said, pardon me.
He said, pardon me?
No, what did he say? It was like great. He said something about, pardon me, would you like to get a drink? And we were like outside the pub, and I'm like, I said something really stupid, like, well, I'm an American. And he was like, yeah, I got that. Thanks.
And?
Right? So getting ready for the blow off, and my freaking friends ditched me. And literally, yes,
those
they did. Yes,
no girl
they
left
did.
behind.
They ran across the highway and left me there. And I was like, bitches. And I'm like, all right, he's cute. I guess I can have a drink with him. And so I went in and I had a drink, and the rest, as they say, is history, because we found we had all this like random weird stuff in common, like bizarre stuff, like that we'd spent part of our childhood in Iran, for God's sakes.
Oh
that
my
we both,
gosh.
I know that we both were going to be sped teachers, that like we both had a connection to Germany. Like I was born there. His mother's, I mean, it was crazy. Right. And so
it was meant to be.
And he talks about this later. And I was like, tell me your version of the story. He's like, I saw you. And he said, I just had this like sense that if I didn't get up and talk to you, that I would be making the biggest mistake of my life. He's like, because he's not like that, right? He's not Mr. like brave and courageous. So I believe that it got him up out of his butt and went after me. So yeah, so that's our story.
A great story. I love that story.
So back to the apps, like, believe me, like I'll take.
But can I say something?
You may.
I just want to interject here. When you talked about seeing my wedding pictures and, feeling that jealousy, I'm just so angry that society does that to us as women. And I know you guys are tired of me talking about all the societal constructs and the patriarchy and everything. But
no, I never get tired of tearing down the patriarchy. Long may it last.
It just fries me because it makes women feel exactly how you felt. Like we're all supposed to do this thing, get married by a certain time. And if we haven't, something is wrong with us.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like I was happy for you, right? Like I was happy. Sure. And we were like in regular touch. I was really happy, but it's like, damn.
No, I get it. Yeah. But it's annoying that women have to deal with that bullshit because it's like, we're just trying to live our lives and do these things. And, society sets up these rules for us and blah, blah, blah. We can go into that another time. But anywho.
Thank you. Yeah. I just, it's weird. And I mean, there were so many emotions caught up with it because your mom was sick by then. I can't remember if my mom went to the wedding or not. I think she was supposed to, and something, I don't know. I can't, she did. I think something happened, right? But so I think that's why like you shared the pictures and blah, 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 blah. The technology now that's involved with dating, right? So I went through that a bit. I know it's like, because back then, of course, it was like, oh, you had to find somebody online. And now it's like, next, that's the only way to find people, right? So I don't have tons of experience with that, but I know that it's reshaped the dating landscape for sure. I would imagine, I mean, these were the fears I had like in my mid to late 30s when I was dating, like clearly, and in that story, right? I was afraid of being vulnerable. Like I had no desire to meet anybody. Fear of rejection, and again, the pressure to pick someone due to the fear of being alone. I mean, like, hello, when you're 36 and you've never been married, like, my God, I mean, my mom just go to church. Why don't you meet a nice person in church? And I actually dated someone I met in church and he turned out to be a jerk. So at any rate, that there's so much pressure to just find someone, and for a lot of reasons that hadn't been me. And I'm glad that it was my husband that I finally chose. But yeah, it's a bugger, right? And again, because we love to bash the patriarchy, men do not get that crap. They just
Totally.
do not. And they're kind of like quirky and like, oh, you devil, like you're 42 and not married. Like,
Right.
that's not how a 42-year-old unmarried woman or divorced woman gets treated that's single, for sure.
100%. Yeah. And I think all those fears that you talked about are just super common, and sometimes I think women pick the wrong person because of some of those fears. But and I mean, I can relate to that, the pressure like to pick somebody like post divorce, because like I was adamant I was not going to step into another relationship just to settle. Like I went through fucking hell. And so I'll be damned if I was going to be in a relationship where I did not feel every single thing I wanted to feel.
Yep.
I'd rather be alone than be in another relationship feeling lonely or unfulfilled. And I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. And I made my intentions clear with Tony when he and I actually started like dating. And he jokes that I'd found my voice like right when he and I started dating, and I never hesitate to use it. And as much as I know, well, I wasn't like that though, honestly.
Yeah.
And that was anyway part of the problem. But as much as me speaking up creates disagreements for him and I, like sometimes, that is how we move forward in our relationship. Like we're able to disagree and talk through conflicts and hurt feelings, and it brings us closer.
Yeah. Something you said reminded me. So when you talked about him joking about you finding your voice. So long story short, story for another episode. We taught overseas for a while, and
Listeners, that means long story long.
Yeah. Settle down, spicy. Just because my drink's spicy doesn't mean you have to be. At any rate, we got an offer from this school in Saudi Arabia, and I was like all for it, right? Like you live on these compounds and like, you make a lot of money in terms of teacher money, right? And all these things. And my husband was like, no. And I'm like, what is your problem? No, we are not doing that. I was like, what is your deal? And it's like we were around other people, so we couldn't really talk about it. So we get back to the hotel room because you have these like speed dating rounds basically when you're trying to teach overseas. And I was like, what is your deal? He's like, you're going to get arrested if we go over there and you'll be in big girl jail. He's like, you can't shut up. I'm like, I'll be fine. He's like, you're going to wear the whole burqa thing and be fine with it. I was like, yeah, I can do that. He's like, hell no. He's like, I just see bad things happening. We are not moving to freaking Saudi Arabia. That is a non-starter. I was like, fine. Okay.
Yeah, I can understand his uncomfortability. You're like a loose cannon, girl.
Yeah, he was like, nope. Not, but I
Not
was like,
happening.
but I'll be good. He's like, this is not a conversation we're gonna have.
Right.
I was like, okay, fine, be that way.
Hey, Fabulous Drinks with the Girls listeners, guess what? We have something exciting happening here at Drinks with the Girls. We have a way for you, our listeners, to be involved. We would love you to be a part of our Drinks with the Girls support team. Creating a sisterhood of empowered women is our goal, and we are so grateful you are here. But we need your help to grow this incredible community that we have a big and bountiful vision for.
You can help us get the word out about Drinks with the Girls because we want all women to feel the support of our powerful community behind them. Here's what you need to do. Go to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe or follow Drinks with the Girls if you haven't already. We need you to share every episode we put out.
We would love for you to do this, especially when a particular episode resonates with you and or brings to mind someone you care about that you think would benefit from listening to it. Share with a girlfriend via text, share to your email newsletter, share on your socials, share from the rooftop. Every share is a chance for all women around the world to feel connected and supported by our Drinks with the Girls sisterhood.
The other thing you can do is officially join our Pod Squad email list. That will help you in two ways. First off, every time a new episode drops, you'll get an email with info on the topic, so it reminds you to tune in and listen with an easy-to-follow link. But it's also an easy format to hit forward on and share with some of your favorite people so they can easily access the newest episode. That link is always included in our show notes for you.
We are so excited to have you as part of the Drinks with the Girls Pod Squad support team. We are all in this together. Cheers!
Cheers! So, some of the benefits in dating in midlife that I can speak to and that Karen has spoken to, I mean, different ends of the spectrum, right? Include emotional maturity, confidence in stating what you want, effective communication, and the ability to set clear intentions and boundaries. In my case, this was not just a long distance relationship. This was like two different continents apart and an ocean kind of long distance relationship.
How long did you guys date?
Okay, so we got together when I was there visiting my friends and spent some time together. And, we said, okay, yeah, he's going to visit, right? But he was getting ready to move to Guatemala to teach and volunteer. There's families that live on the rubbish dumps in Guatemala City. And so he was going in the program to teach kids. And we were like, okay, when you're done with that, maybe you come over and visit, right? And it wasn't just like this, oh, we're going to run off in the sunset. I mean, it was ridiculous, right? But then things got serious real quick because his father passed away and he had to come home from Guatemala and deal with that. And so, the conversations got kind of heavy kind of quickly. I mean, like when you're 36, 37 dating, and he's a little bit younger than me, like you don't have time for that crap. Like
Yeah.
you kind of get to
No
the
time
point
for
quickly.
bullshit.
Not to mention the fact that in those days, international phone calls, hello, that was
Right.
expensive. And so that was part of it. And then the other part was, and it's just funny how the universe works. So over there, you don't get to do student teaching like your university sets you up with that. Like you have to go find a placement. And so it's a big deal. So he had secured this placement and lo and behold, it fell through at the last moment and he had nowhere to go. And it was like, okay. So like we met in July. This was like October. And he's like, well, maybe we should see and we should try it. And I was like, okay, let's see. Right. And even my dad, it was hysterical, right? My might as well be Catholic dad was like, I think you two should live together first. And so I don't know. We had this whole thing and then it got real, right? And he's selling all his stuff and he's moving over and it gets to the point where he's coming over on the plane. And we always tell the story from both point of views because we remember thinking, both of us at the same time, wow, this better work. Because if it doesn't, this is one hell of an expensive trip and this is not going to go well. And then, we got engaged probably a few weeks after. I mean, we were engaged within 6 months and then we got married. Well, we got married for the visa. That's a whole other topic in January. And then our wedding was actually a year later. But yeah, you get to that point and you just don't have time for the bullshit. Like everybody really knows what they want and you just don't suffer fools lightly.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think the things, that you mentioned earlier, the emotional maturity, the confidence, like to state what you want, effective communication, setting clear boundaries and intentions, like telling your partner what you want, like those are good things for everybody. Like whether you're in a new relationship post-divorce or you've been married for 30 years, right? Like those are just things that are helpful for, relationships to last, I think. So let's shift gears a little bit. So in 2023, 70% of divorces were initiated by women. Like, let's dive into that. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think it's super telling that you've literally never worked with a client that didn't initiate the divorce. Like, let's unpack that for a second, right? I mean, that I think speaks volumes for sure,
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that I haven't seen any women personally is because my feeds are full of empowerment, like women's empowerment. And I think that, women that come to me are the ones who have been settling for years and years and the ones who are finally finding their voice and the ones who are wanting something better, right? And they need somebody who's gone first. They need somebody to hold their hand and say, I've been through this and let me help you. Let me show you the way, right? I don't get the women who are, on the other side.
Blindsided and I can only imagine.
I think women, they just get tired and worn down and finally they get to a point where they believe they're worthy of better. Like in my mid to late 40s, I knew my marriage was teetering close to the edge. I knew I was unhappy and I did everything I knew to do to try to help our relationship get better, but I didn't get it perfect. And when you're not raised to know how to navigate all the complexities of being married for decades, it becomes really challenging, especially when you feel like you're doing all the work. And I know a lot of women feel like they have no choice. So they settle. And I was not willing to settle for my whole life. I was choosing me. And that was actually kind of a radical choice.
And I want to say something about that too. Like, we had two very different situations. You were raised with divorced parents, I wasn't. But I was also keenly aware that not only was my parents' marriage not perfect, that I think we've talked about this in other episodes, just in terms of divorce and kind of when our mom got cancer and what that meant to them. I was really keenly aware that I was not going to put up with the crap that my mom put up with for my
Yeah.
dad. And I was very intentional about that. And my husband knows, like, I don't put up with a lot of the stuff that she put up with. And
Yeah, and you chose somebody who values doing the work. Like
yeah,
you chose somebody who will, talk about what's wrong and
yeah,
then work to fix it and not be
yeah,
defensive or I mean, I don't know the ins and the outs, but you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
instead of just saying, "Oh no, it's you, not me,"
yeah.
or "I'm not going to do that," or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I say this, like, it's not perfect, but that is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
we would have been done a long time ago. So,
Yeah. And I feel like we're not raised knowing how, like I said, to
yep.
navigate all these complexities unless you're raised with personal development tools and, which is I think a minority of people
Especially
just
with 40-year
watching.
marriages.
Oh, totally. And just watching our parents stay married for 40 plus years isn't enough. Like that's not enough. Why like to your point, watching women suffer in silence and brush things under the rug doesn't count.
Yep.
That's not how you make a good marriage. That's just how you stay married. But are people happy? Like, and are women even allowed to ask if they're happy? So, if anything, this tells women you better suck it up, buttercup, because no matter how unfulfilled you feel, there's no way out. And that is not what I want to pass on to my daughter
Yeah.
or my son.
And I remember when we separated, that was a big piece for me, as I was just like, I can't stay in this marriage just because of finances or all this other stuff. Like, what am I teaching my daughter? And I know that resonated with her. It's resonated with some of my friends that are in difficult situations. They were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe, like, you kicked him out and you guys separated." And that was literally what made me make the decision. I was like, I can't do this for my kids anymore, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's huge. And, I am not an advocate for divorce at all. I'm an advocate for women choosing their best life, right? And there is value in communication and working things out and sticking with it through the rough patches in a marriage. But if there isn't mutual respect and communication and you're not feeling supported, safe, validated, seen, or like your marriage is a place you can really be your best self, then where are we? My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers like my Midlife Reclamation Guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers.
I have to say that I love the fact that you've turned all this angst and pain, because clearly it was, into something that you can help women with. So, talk to us a little bit about this special thing that you have created, because I think it's really going to resonate with a lot of women.
Well, I've really recently just really leaned into the whole title of divorce coach, and I
Yeah,
have
because you
created.
didn't like that before. I remember you were like, "Oh, I don't want to be known as like the person that helps people get divorces," right? Like, I remember that was really intentional for a while.
Yeah, no, it was. I didn't, and honestly, it was because I had to get to a certain point in my own healing and my own, work around my own divorce. Because you don't want a divorce coach that's still, knee deep in her own shit. But anyway, I got to that point, and then I thought, I can really help women with this. Like, I really know how to do this. One of the things when I was creating these resources for women that I really wanted to kind of address was the judgment, because there's a lot of fears that go along with getting a divorce. But one of them, and it sounds silly, but it's the fear of what are other people going to think? Like, what are your family going to say? What are your friends going to say? And you need to really just get good at not caring what people think. And it took me a long time to figure that out. So if I can help women like speed speed dial through that because people are going to make judgments about you no matter what. So I just entered this new level of freedom when I got to the point in my healing where I just didn't give a fuck. I was fine with my ex and anyone else thinking whatever they wanted to think about me. I knew who I was. The only people that mattered to me and what they thought about me were my kids. And it was hard at first, I'm not going to lie. After years and after many conversations, we are at an amazing place in our relationships, but those first years were hell. And I still tell both of them to get into therapy to work through the hurt and the trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit when I was doing some research for this episode, there's a term called walkaway wives. And that refers to women who often feel emotionally alone in their marriages, leading them to initiate divorce. It's a term to describe feeling emotionally alone, unable to connect with their husbands on a deeper level. And usually there are very few personal, meaningful conversations taking place. Her needs, interests, and feelings go ignored or invalidated. I have to say, though, it seems kind of pejorative to call it that. Like, I don't know. Maybe you feel differently, but
what does pejorative mean?
Big words with Lisa. My old boss used to joke all the time. He's like, I swear to God, I feel like it's a vocabulary lesson with you every day. And I'm like, I'm not trying to sound this way. It just comes out. It's all that studying.
Okay, smart girl. Okay, nerd.
I know.
What does it mean?
Yeah. So it means a term that is used to feel bad, right? So like a term that is meant to demean or damage.
I mean, literally, you sound like you're reading the definition. You know that you pulled that from your brain. Oh my God.
And the hilarious thing, okay,
Who
back
are
to
you?
my trauma and squirrel. Like when I say stuff like that, I literally in my mind am like going through my flashcards in my English class to study for my SATs. Like, can you say trauma? Hello.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Well, that's
that's vocabulary squirrel.
That's an interesting perspective because honestly, when I hear that, I feel so seen because this was pretty much me. I mean, not all of it. Like, you know, we had meaningful conversations, you know, sometimes, whatever. But like my ex and I had become so disconnected and I felt unvalidated a little bit and ignored. I tried over the years to reconnect emotionally, but it never really stuck. And I feel like this relates to that previous statistic of 70% of divorces being initiated by women.
Well, and okay, you know, I joke about the whole you'll be very happy with your third wife thing, but I know the research bears me out. Like from what I've read, that stat in terms of women being the ones 70% of the time that leave, like there's statistics and I know that they are in terms of the benefits of staying married. And I cannot, I mean, I'm talking out my butt, but I know that there's a stat that talks about men benefit from marriage a lot more than women do. Like, I'm not talking about the trophy wives and the this, that, and the other, or whatever that is, but just the emotional piece. Like, again, joking with my husband, like, I'm always like, because this was true, I'm always like, if you hadn't met me, you'd be living over some nightclub in this horrible flat, looking at an alley, listening to people puke up their guts that were drunk all night. And he's like, yeah, so, right? So, but I mean, literally, it was true. But I think about that when we are at our worst moment. Like, I remember saying to my therapist, like, when we were separated, I was just like, I'll be fine. I'll be just fine. He will not be just fine.
Yeah. Well, and you're not talking out of your butt because I know that is, and I wish I knew the stat you're referring to, but I mean, I wonder also like the fact that, you know, women do so much of the labor, like the household labor, the kid labor, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, we can get into the whole weeds of the social constructs around, you know, traditional gender roles, but we won't go down there. I just think a lot of times women just feel emotionally unsupported in their marriage. Unsupported, is that a word? Emotionally unsupported in their marriages. And, you know, there's a lack of emotional intimacy sometimes. And I resonate a little bit with that. Like, I definitely felt a lack of the emotional intimacy and connection when we did divorce, but it really made it hard for the people on the outside looking in because I was so well supported financially. Like, and I was a stay-home mom, so I literally was supported financially, right? Everything looked great from the outside. But I, like these walkaway wives, I knew I didn't want to remain in a disconnected, emotionally flat, unhappy marriage for my lifetime.
Yeah. And I'm sure that that's a common theme. And, this idea of two ships passing in the night. And I'm sure that can be heartbreaking. And I'm going to assume that women often feel that divorce is the only option to find that emotional fulfillment that they crave.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was us, two ships passing in the night, even though it sounds, cliche. But I think women get to a point where they give up emotionally. I think this is what I did. It's like we're so tired of being met with resistance or worse, apathy that, we leave in our minds, long before we physically leave. And so by the time the divorce comes, it's like we've already let it go.
So as we wrap up, let's remind our listeners that while a divorce can be daunting, it opens the door to new beginnings and other opportunities for growth. It's never too late to reinvent your life. And if you want to stay out of the divorce attorney's office, do something about it now. So let's talk key takeaways, because we always want to leave you with some takeaways.
100%. So takeaways, I'd say, if you're staying married, if you decide, even if you're unhappy, if you decide to stay married, do not settle for just lukewarm. Make it the juiciest, the most fun relationship that it can possibly be. Decide what your mutual values are for your marriage. Be brave. Ask for what you fucking want. Spice it up. Reconnect with your partner. Have some freaking fun. And switch things up in the bedroom. Like get some sex toys, watch some sexy things that get you both turned on, go on dates. And if you need help doing this, hire a coach or a therapist, because isn't your happiness worth it? Hell yeah, it is. So what about you, Lisa? What would you say are good takeaways?
I think this idea of speaking up, at some point our listeners are going to hear from Tony, Karen's fiance, and my husband, Martin, about us. That should be a barrel of laughs. So I'm sure that they will talk about the joys of having partners that speak up for themselves. My husband will likely relate that he's glad he's not in a Saudi Arabian jail, but that's a whole other topic. But I think that, again, I look at our situations and they're quote unquote on paper different, right? Karen's divorced. I'm married. Karen got married early. I got married late. But I feel like throughout this episode, there's been the same theme, as in people grow, people change. It's not the same as when you first start out, for example, in a marriage. Like my marriage is very different now.
Yeah,
and if
sure.
you aren't able to have that elasticity and support each other and be able to have that connection where you talk through things when they get rough, like forget it. It's never going to happen. So I feel like whether people decide to get divorced or not, or in my case, separated and then get back together again, you have to be able to feel like you have a clear line of communication with each other and that everybody is feeling validated. Otherwise,
absolutely. That validation piece is huge. So thank you all so much for joining us today. If you found value in today's discussion, please subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with a girlfriend who might benefit from it.
Yeah, we always love to hear from you. So please reach out with your stories, your questions, or suggestions for future episodes. We love that when we get suggestions for episodes around divorce, navigating midlife relationships, whatever, right? Keeping the spark alive. You guys have great suggestions. And we appreciate you as always. And we're going to say cheers.
Until next time, keep on loving. Cheers.